Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are once again so delighted to have one of the greats of the club joining us to answer your questions, and then to regale us with his time both at town and alike. And we are delighted to welcome Kevin Donovan. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us. One of the more nice backgrounds we've seen from our players. Very nice gaff you have, yeah.
Right, yeah. Wasn't planned. I just sat down in the kitchen, to be honest.
The best of the interior decorators so far we've had. How's everything your way in Brickhouse? You were telling us that the soccer school is back up and running and good to go.
Yeah, back up now. We've been back up, obviously, for a few weeks now with everything opening up a little bit. So we're just at the soccer school today for 3 days. Running at our Brickhouse. So it's just nice to be back and just getting these courses back on for the kids again because I've missed so much.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm joined as well by Scott, who is not eating anything for once.
Well, you've just missed me eating, so.
What, is that a Top of the Pops mug?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story behind that mug alone.
I just like Top of the Pops. Although it's not been on telly for about 20 years. But anyway.
So did the Metropolitan Police.
It wasn't part of Operation Nutri or anything. It wasn't. It was like a souvenir.
It's really cheap. You get them in really cheap in home bargains now, can't you?
Yeah.
It's like 99p a cup. And Ian is either in his work get-up or he's not wearing a football shirt for once.
This is work get-up, kind of. Yeah, this is office wear.
But we're missing the vajazzled headboard today.
Yeah, there's no Swarovski crystals behind me today. We'll leave all that flash stuff to Kev tonight.
There's nothing really you can take. There's nothing to take the mick out of with my background. The only thing I have to do is my camera has to be carefully balanced because if it goes too far down, you can see the litter tray in the background, which is quite nice. But
Yours is the photo and the Kleenex on the front of your desk, isn't it? That's the
issue. I'm moving that picture for when Alan Powton comes on. I'm not having that. They always take the mick because I've got that in a little. Leanne kept moving it in the background, so whenever I was on one of these important calls for work, you could just see it over here somewhere. Because who's that? And then I'll tell them. But Kevin, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, one of the most exciting players we ever had. I don't know, Scott and Ian, you were same as me, sort of same age groups. It was what did Kev mean to you? Like, this is an emotional support group. What are your memories, Scott and Ian? And then I'll get into the questions. I'm sure you guys have had a look as well.
Go on, Ian.
I mean, for me, it's just the double season. Obviously, straight away is just going to jump out and stand out there, you know. And to be fair, not even with Kev, but just that whole team. I think for anybody that's in our age group, you know, you talk to clubs of with other fans, and they all have a team that stands out in their history. And for me, you know, coming up to mid-30s, Alex, you mid-40s, obviously, Scott, same age as me. That team just stands out, and obviously Kev is a massive, massive part of that. And it's only recently I was actually watching the 2 Wembley games with my daughter just to show her that at some point in time Grimsby have gone to Wembley and done fairly well, rather than when she's been each time she's a bit of a jinx because I didn't take her to the successful playoff final recently.
Kev, I'm not going to apologise for blowing smoke up your arse, mate, because honestly, that season I was 15, 16. And it was the first proper year where I pretty much went to every game because I started to have mates who could drive so I could get to Grimsby.
Yeah.
I lived in Louth at the time. And honestly, some of the football was just so exciting. I remember you and John McDermott on the right-hand side just had a telepathic... It was just unbelievable. Like some of the things, you linking up with John McDermott, Jack Lester, and so many of the goals... From what I remember, they might not have been. From what I remember, were very similar, including the one in the playoff final against Northampton, where a ball would be played up front to Leicester, and Leicester would just hold it up, knock it off. Maka would be cutting in, he'd cross it in, and it'd be a goal. Yeah. And it was just such an exciting team to watch. And the funny thing is, it started really slowly from what I remember that season. It was
did,
really, it was really average. And in fact, I remember people amazingly calling for Alan Buckley's head because he'd come back, and which is, just crazy when you think about it now. But to have a player in yourself, Kev, who wasn't an out-and-out striker, and to score 21 goals, was it?
Yeah.
I don't, well, that's never been done by any other player that I can think of at Grimsby. So it was an exciting time to be a Grimsby fan, and it was we were being entertained first and foremost as well.
Yeah.
And that was just that was the most pleasurable thing about it. And you gave me some of my best memories, really, from what I remember, from the old Wembley games and the Fulham playoff game. And I hope it was as good for you, Kev, as it was for the fans.
Well, when you say that, I think you're on about probably the best memories. It gave us our best ones as well, along with obviously one or two other things that have happened sort of in my early career, things like that. But I think when you talk about, it's strange really, when you talk about John McDermott and Jack having kind of that. I mean, obviously I'd never ever, I played against John, but obviously it was just something that clicked straight away. Obviously, Alan had worked on obviously different styles. Is one style of play, should we say? So we always knew where we should be in terms of things. But it was almost like just what you said. I almost knew where he was going to be, and I think it was vice versa as well in terms of him with me. So it was just one of those pairings that clicked from. I knew from the first game. I think we played when I came up. I think it was a friendly against Hearts Midlothian, and I just came off thinking. I just knew I'd be able to play with him. I thought I could tell the way his style of play. I just thought this could work out quite well, and obviously, as it panned out, it did.
Who was the right back at West Brom that you play with?
Well, to be honest, I was a little bit all over at West Brom. Sort of behind the front two, I played midfield. I played on the right side. I never really sort of hooked out on the right hand side. So it used to change anyway. We had quite a few that were sort of right back. So a lad called Darryl Burgess who played there. Who was a good player. I had a good understanding with him, but nothing on the level of obviously playing with John.
Well, I can testify as well, lads, because I played in the Chairman's Challenge in 2013.
Clang.
Against Kev. And I was playing at left back. And I had to mark Kevin Donovan and then John McDermott. And they had my pants down all night. I had no idea.
I'm not so sure about that.
I had no idea what to do. I got cramp after about half an hour.
When did you decide to just start kicking lumps out of them, Scott?
I think you were kind to us, to be honest.
I couldn't get near the pair of them, and they'd not played together for years. And yet, they were on the pitch, and they knew exactly. Kev knew exactly where Macca would be without even looking, and he was always there, hugging the touchline. And so I've got personal testimony of the pairing, and it was a bloody nightmare.
Yeah,
I
remember it well.
I just remember it being sort of overlap central. Like you two were. I mean, did you know that you would have that sort of ability between you two, that sort of connection between you as you were playing, or did it just come through
it just developed? I think it just happened. Didn't particularly work on things. For me, it was brilliant because he just backed me up all the time. So obviously, you knew, and a lot of people knew I wasn't the best defender in the world. But knowing that I had him behind me gave me a bit of license to a bit of freedom in terms of going forward without having to worry as much. Because in terms of defending, it were unbelievable as well. Not many players got past him at all. So as a player behind, you couldn't have asked for anybody better. But then I knew where he'd be coming forward, charging forward. I knew without looking, he'd either be just behind me, or I could hear him going forward or going on the inside or outside. It just clicked straight away. It took a little bit of time in terms, like I say, that first sort of 9-10 games, probably for everybody to click. But I knew that I had an understanding with John straight away.
Andy, so the first question I've got here from Andy, which was sent at 12:32 a.m., which might explain the question.
Has he had a beer too?
Was our Donovan for England banner a waste of time in '98, as someone had said you'd chosen to play for Ireland anyway? Also, do you even remember seeing it?
I do remember the banner, yeah, when we were on the open top bus. I know exactly what they mean, yeah. I didn't choose Ireland, though. I don't know where he's got that one from. I think I can't even remember. There was a little bit of mooting around at the time. I can't remember who was in charge. It was McCarthy or whoever, and it just asked about my background. But that's as far as it ever got in terms of things like that. Never got any further. But yeah, I do remember the banner. I think it's actually on one of the videos of like the overall season type roundup thing. And I do remember it to this day. Yeah, so it wasn't a waste of time.
There was no
championship manager that year. It said Kevin Donovan, Republic of Ireland. For some, obviously, for some reason.
Did it really?
They had asked about, obviously, sort of, had I got a dog or a cat that had been brought over from Ireland, something like that. They were just trying anything, I think, but nothing ever came of it, to be honest.
No ringing mum and dad back home going.
Yeah. No, I knew there wasn't. No.
Where's Uncle Seamus from?
No, not quite.
Right, that was good. I mean, what was your? I mean, it'd be interesting to know in your playing career. You said you had quite a few memories before as well. What were your highlights before Town? What would you hang your hat on?
I think obviously, sort of my first move down to West Brom, obviously being signed by Aussie Art Dealers was big. Obviously, a big thing for me and Keith Birkinshaw, who was obviously just come out of management with Spurs. They come up to watch a game when we played. It was funny enough when we played Blackburn, and they sort of got the Alan Shearer and Dalglish was in charge. I think it was something called, I remember the Rumbelows Cup. It was that game. So they came up and watched me, and then I got a phone call day after, would like to go and sign for them. So I think that was sort of one of the highlights to start off with. And then obviously similar really how it panned out in terms of, I went down to West Brom as a 20-year-old. Ozzy told me I'd be saved sort of for the next season. But I ended up getting in quite early, taking Gary Robson's place. And I played probably 30-odd games towards the end of the season, all the way through the season, joining in October. And same again, finishing off similar to what we did at Grimsby with a Wembley final. And probably same again, West Brom had not been there for years and years. They'd been on a downer, so it was a massive thing in terms of a boost for the club. They'd had a couple of relegations, so it were very, very similar to what we did when we came up to Grimsby.
Apologies, Vince. Yeah, Ian, go ahead.
No, I was waiting for you, Alex. I thought you.
Oh, sorry, my friend. No,
it
was really interesting because obviously you had Huddersfield before it as well. What was the differences in setup? Because West Brom, with that sort of setup of Aussie coming in and there's obviously quite a few Spurs connections, were they trying their hardest to get to reassert their dominance in the league? Because it's not a team that should be where it is.
No.
Was the setup any more professional than it was at Huddersfield? I know it's different nowadays when we talk about Huddersfield.
Yeah, it was totally different when I went down there. I mean, their aim was, obviously they got Aussie in and Keith, obviously they were expecting them there to be a bit longer than what they did. So their aim was to go back into what would have been the Division 1, so to Premier League. So that's what their aim would have been. That's what it was. Obviously, everything was set up in terms of, it was just a bigger club. Obviously, it's a bigger club in stature than Huddersfield was. Training ground, set up. Obviously, Ozzy and Keith have come from the top, very, very top. So they're trying to instill everything into it that were top level. But obviously, once we got promoted, then Spurs came in for Ozzy straight away. I think a week after we got promoted at Wembley. And obviously, he had to go because it was obviously his boyhood club, and he couldn't turn down the opportunity to go and manage him, which was a big, looking back, a big disappointment for myself because he sort of took me under the wing and spent a lot of time with me in terms of playing and how to play and how he wanted me to play. But just one of those things that Spurs came calling and he had to go, and there was an embargo that he couldn't come back for any West Brom players. So we were stuck, really.
Alan Buckley would have struggled.
That's a clever embargo. We should have had one of them.
Well, yeah, I know. And he would have got. I mean, I spoke to him not long after, and yeah, I think I might have been in a different place.
Really?
Embargo not been there, but that's how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? Oh wow.
Yeah.
What was it like meeting Alan for the first time then? What was it like meeting the gaffer? First impressions?
I'll be honest, I think everybody heard about the style of football that he plays. he came down straight away to West Brom. He fit in really well, to be honest, when he came down. Obviously, he went back for a few players and brought them down, so they knew the system and how he wanted to play straight away. So it was similar for a while. It turned, the first sort of 6 months, you speak to some of the West Brom fans now, it was outstanding football. It's football that probably not seen for a long, long time since probably Ozzy had left, really, in terms of the football. And then whether he just got one too many players in from his old club, I don't know what it was, but things just turned for him, and they turned pretty quickly. And at a club like West Brom, 20,000 odd in the ground, it doesn't take long for him to make the feelings known, and it's time to move on.
I mean, you've got quite a unique perspective on that as well, because obviously you've seen him when it's gone really well and when it's not so. Was there a difference in the way he managed and sort of looked after West Brom than he did, say, at Town? And were you surprised with the difference there was when you came to Grimsby and sort of the turnaround he'd made there?
To be honest, in terms of how he was and how his style and what it was like when he was winning, exactly the same at West Brom and what it was Grimsby. When they were losing, it could be an absolute nightmare, which is understandable because he wants to win. So there was no difference from him managing down at West Brom to going back up to Grimsby, not that I saw at all. If we lost, we were in Sunday morning, regardless of whatever happened, which was a flipping nightmare if you'd organised to do something on Saturday night. But that was just one of those things. You knew you were going to be in. So in terms of how he managed West Brom, no different to when he went back up to Grimsby at all. And was it
him that sort of initiated the move and sold the club to you in the project, or was it the hope of getting back a bit close to family as friends as well, I guess?
No, I met him at the Little Chef on the A38 on a Sunday morning once, and I was just about to go. I had it was a nightmare because I was meant to be playing golf at 12 o'clock. I met him about 10 o'clock and he caught me looking at me watch at about 11:15. He gave me a right telling off. So I'm thinking I'm going to miss playing golf. But I met him there on the A38 and he just told me that the chairman had given him a certain amount of money and he wanted to go to obviously go back into the championship. That's what his aim was. He'd given him a certain amount of money, which is quite a lot of money in them days, in terms of spend and also on wages. Told me who he was after signing. Obviously, players that he'd already got there I knew about anyway. And I just thought it was time for a move, and I just thought it could be. I just had a funny feeling that it could be a good thing to go, and I needed a break from there, and it was just ideal, really, just to go up there and use around his new beginning.
Obviously, you'd had experience of Alan Buckley before coming over. Had you had much of experience of Town in a more general sense before joining?
No, not really, to be honest. No, other than playing there a couple of times and things like that. You knew, obviously, you speak to players about how friendly the club is in terms of a family club and things like that. But that was it, really. Nothing. I'll be honest, probably not a great deal else I would have known about the club at the time.
But you must have been aware, Kev, of like the rivalry, which now seems crazy, but there was quite a big rivalry, certainly from Grimsby's side towards West Brom. With Alan leaving, did you play in the game when Nirvana Bonetti scored the winner 1-0?
No, I came. 96. Yeah, no, I came back up. When did I came? I came back up and played for. Well, no, sorry, I played up but that was when Alan was manager, and we came back up, and I scored and Andy Hunt scored. I think it was 2-0. I don't know whether Bonetti was playing that year. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think it was, no.
No, I don't think it was. So he came back up, and obviously he didn't get the best of receptions, didn't Alan? And obviously we ended up beating Grimsby as well, so that didn't go down too well. So I knew what it was hostile for him, and to be honest, he didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that he'd done. I think it was the fact that he'd done so well there, and everybody had turned on him, or the majority had turned on him for going down to West Brom. But I suppose he just thought, maybe a big club, give it a chance and see what happens.
Was he harshly treated at West Brom, do you think?
Difficult to say. I don't know the ins and outs. I think he did all right, to be honest. I thought he had a decent record there. But West Brom, it doesn't take long before, if things are going wrong, that you're not going to last long there if results are going against. So like most places, but it's pretty much, you haven't got long there if you need to turn things around pretty quick, and we just couldn't turn things around for him.
was trying to find the team sheet, but I can't find anything. The only other West Brom game that season at the Hawthorns was we lost 3-1. Bob Taylor got 2 and Richard Sneaks got the other.
Sneakers,
and then Jamie Forrester got the consolation goal for ourselves. But that West Brom game, I remember that being hyped for.
Yes.
I was what, 9, and I even remember like the build up for it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I remember like that's a proper cup final for us when I'd imagine West Brom turn up just apart from Alan just shrugging, going, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Alan, he was. I've never seen. That's probably the one only game where it was different in terms of his mannerisms for the whole day, before the game, during the game. He knew it was a big game, and I think he did feel a little bit hard done to in terms of what people were saying. Obviously, a lot of things being said towards him, and I don't think he liked it, to be honest. And I don't think it actually sat well the whole day with him, really, if I'm quite honest with you.
That's fair, isn't it? It was and absolutely considering what he'd done. Even if we try and take out the other 2 terms he had as manager at the club, he'd already done enough to staple himself into the club folklore for what he'd achieved.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I guess one advantage of his like of former players is we got you, and then we got obviously Paul came back as well, and was the rumours about around West Brom? I don't know how it worked because it might probably a little bit before my time, but he obviously came back to town. That was in the off season, wasn't it, Scott?
Yes, yeah.
And so were there rumours at West Brom like, oh, he's gone there, he's gone back? Would anybody be going? And or did you hear nothing of a like?
Well, knowing Alan, I knew Groves well, so I knew Groves were going back up within 2 days, so I knew he was going on his way. And I'd also spoke to Paul as well, and he'd also asked if I fancied going up as well. So
thanks, Paul.
I kind of knew what was going to happen in terms of I was sort of waiting for a call. I'd already sort of half expected him to call, and obviously he did. And I'd already spoke to Grosey about it. And then obviously that meeting at the Little Chef sort of decided everything.
So when you came in, obviously you've mentioned that Alan had been given a decent budget by the chairman. What was the kind of mood in and around the squad at the start of the season? Obviously, like we've said, it started a little bit slow. Was there ever any doubts, or was everybody kind of confident that the season would end out well in the long run?
Do you know what? I think there were doubts, to be honest, because obviously we'd come up, myself had come up. It basically put a side together with the amount of money that it got. Obviously, we sort of acquired 1 or 2 players as well throughout the season that made a massive difference. But I think I can't remember a game because we were all still living, myself, Groves. I think even Alan were living back down we were still living in the Midlands at that point. So I remember us getting in. I don't know whether we played Preston. And to be honest, we were all back. Alan would give us a lift back down. So me and Paul in the car, and I think we've got beat as well. And he just turned around and said, "What's happening, boys? What's going on?" He said, and just Groves said, "Don't worry, just give it a little bit of time. Hopefully, everything will turn out okay." But I think it just took a while. I think chucking a team together like that took a little bit of time. But what I would say is, once we got the first few wins, you could tell there was something a little bit different about what was going on.
And those wins were big as well. So obviously we'd beaten Fulham away.
Yeah.
In that game, and you scored, didn't you? That they were my thinking of the semi-final.
That'd be.
It was Livo got 2. Sorry.
Livo, yeah. But big games, but there was just something about just the way that everybody was sort of bonding together, and you could just tell it. And obviously, you could never tell it we're going to end up how it ended up. Obviously playing at Wembley and things like that. But you just thought, actually, this team's got a chance.
I want to hear more about these car journeys with Alan Buckley. That must have been hell.
To be honest, it was a one-off. There was no way we were going in that car again after that one. Not a chance. He hammered us for 2 hours on way
down. No want to stop at a service station on the way down. Just get me back as quickly as possible.
Straight back. Yeah, we got a grilling that night, I tell you. Luckily, Groves was sat in front, I were in the back.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I know it's Alan Buckley, but imagine that Paul Paul Groves is getting a bollocking. It's just an image that doesn't sit in my head.
No, it wasn't. It was pretty awkward. I'll be honest with you. I'll never forget it. Actually, as I've just said, there, it was not the best 2 hours of my life. That one, that's for sure.
Anyway, looking forward to coming back in a couple of weeks, Kev?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Are you? I don't know how it works. He's obviously managing. Are you being managed by him, or are we on a different?
To be honest, we don't know. We just keep seeing there's about 8,000 players coming back, so we've no idea whether he's going to manage all of us or what. I don't know whether he's going to manage a certain era. We don't know. We're just going to come back, and obviously, it's for a great cause, and we'll do whatever we're told to do.
As long as you don't concede, if you're being managed by him, you'll be fine.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully he's mellowed a little bit now.
No.
No.
I mean, in that season, was there a defining result from you guys that really made you aware that something special was going to happen? I know when Wembley came around, I remember the Blackpool game more than anything.
Yeah.
The game before your wonder goal.
Yeah.
And Blunder Park was rammed. Well, for Blunder Park, it was rammed, and people were really excited. Was there any game in that season going for you? I know you'd already been, but you're like, oh, hang on, we can go here.
Yeah.
When did that come into your head?
Tell you what it was, and this was daft because I can't even remember the team that we played. But we came out, obviously the dressing rooms came out, and obviously meet sort of each other just outside the referee's room. And Graham Rodgers started singing a song, something to do with Muhammad Ali or something. I can't even remember what it was. Everybody started joining in. And I mean, everybody from Grovesy all the way. And it echoed. It was that loud. And it was just the players singing. And we looked across. Team didn't fancy it. I can't remember what it was. The team never thought I could tell these are going to we'll do these today. But there was something about that lead up to walking out on that pitch where he got it from, I don't know. You'll probably have to ask him at some point, Graham. Everybody, and I just thought, we're all together here. We're ready to go. And it's something I've never been involved with, where it's just like it just went on and on and on and on. So we got onto the pitch and I just thought, this is different, there's something going on. So it wasn't particularly a game as in playing the game, but that for me stands out in my mind quite as a strong moment. And I thought we've got something in terms of a bond, a spirit that we could definitely go on and do something.
Was that quite early on in the season then that you remember that being, or can you not even really place it?
No, I would probably say it was probably midway through. Okay. It was a strange one, but it just sticks in my mind in terms of I thought it's just this is a little bit different. We've got something going.
That's brilliant. I mean, in the year of social media, that would have been all over there. Absolutely all over the place. Yeah. Charity singles coming out, having you all stood in front of Grimsby College. We should probably talk about that video at some point. The Twist music video.
Yeah. Maybe another time.
Yeah. What was it like? What was it like playing against Leeds?
It was good, yeah. It was. I mean, we had a brilliant one. We had a great season. We ended up playing Leeds and Liverpool same season, so it was fantastic. Obviously, going back, the team that I supported was good. Obviously, we didn't come out with the right result, but it was just another thing that just sort of, when you look back, just fell into place. It was just obviously meant to be. My family, a lot of Leeds fans, could go and watch, and then obviously myself playing and. It was just a good occasion, but obviously coming up against a good Leeds team.
And then other nights at Anfield, in the League Cup, and also Hillsborough, which gets forgotten about. Beating Sheffield Wednesday, who I think sacked David Pleat, straight after. Yeah, beating those over two legs. I remember that was my first ever away game, the Hillsborough game, and I think we lost 3-2 on the night. I think, but beaten 2-0 in the first leg, and it was Di Canio, Carboni, that team, and you had good cup nights like that. And
absolutely,
it must have only been a good experience going into the league.
Yeah, that were brilliant. Do you know what? That were a brilliant night. That one at Hillsborough. I remember that obviously with Di Canio and Carboni playing. They had a really, really good side. But another one of those things where you think we've got, obviously not on the night, but fantastic performance, nearly a great result. And then you look at the players that we played against, they were phenomenal players, and we put ourselves against them pretty well. So and fans were there. So it's just like it was one of those, like you say, brilliant nights in that season.
Yeah, and even the Liverpool game, losing 3-0 was no disgrace. Michael Owen getting a hat-trick, but it can only be a good experience for the players, especially the younger lads.
Absolutely. To go there anyway, but obviously when you go in, when you're playing against players like that, obviously we'd never, I mean, I think it was Michael Owen's first ever hat-trick. We'd actually, I remember us being in the dressing room and Alan's brother was a scout, was Steve, I think it was Steve.
Yeah.
And obviously he came down, he always used to come down and give you like the team sheet with everybody on and then give a little bit of a write-up. But the only write-up we didn't have on the team was obviously Michael Owen, because they hadn't seen enough of him in terms of games, and all they had was scored a bundle of goals in reserves and youth team. That was it. The rest of them, you had McManaman, big paragraph like that. Leonardson, big paragraph about what he can do. Michael Owen scored bundles of goals in reserves. Anyway, that didn't last long. Did it? Pete Andyside got told to mark him. He said, we won't bother with you, Mark, Lever. So we'll put Pete on him. Anyway, he was swearing after about 5 minutes, saying, Jesus Christ, what have we got here? He was like an absolute bullet. Unbelievable.
We even forget you forgot off that list beating Leicester City as well.
Yeah.
Which is, it's incredible to think so much happened in that season.
Yeah, I think Kevin Donovan scored in that goal, Leicester City. When Neil Lennon were playing and people like that, they had a good side as well, phenomenal side.
They were League Cup champions at the time, weren't they, I think, when we beat them? Yeah.
Fantastic side. And another, as I say, another one of them nights at London Park, which is like absolutely packed to the rafters. It creates such a unbelievable special atmosphere.
Stuart Campbell played in that game. I did not know that.
Stuart, yeah.
I didn't know that. Grimsby Town, Stuart Campbell. I just had to click on it because it said S. Campbell.
Yeah.
Sold didn't play for them. And then, well, we should really talk about probably one of my favourite ever goals for Town, where you rattled it in from, whenever I talked about it, it started from 25 yards out, and by the end of it, it was about 47 yards out from goal. How was that Burnley game? I mean, it must stick in your memory, but was that one of the sweetest goals you've ever scored? Or not really?
In terms of strike, it was. Obviously, you don't often hit them where it's as sweet as it does, where sweet as I did on the night. But I think more so, for what it meant for everybody. Suddenly everybody realised, we're going to Wembley, which was obviously unknown, never happened before. So it was just what it meant to strike on the night, and the fans behind the goal as well, which couldn't have gone in a better place really on that side of behind the goal. It was brilliant.
Yeah, especially and against Chris Waddle as well. I mean, he had
They had a good side. Yeah, they had a good side. Chris Woods in goal, Chris Waddle. They had some decent players. That was. I know we're not allowed to swear on here, but that was.
No, you can go ahead.
It was Wayne Burnett's famous words. I remember the corner coming over, ball got headed out, and as it's dropping, old Wayne just said, "Just fucking hit it, Kev." Bang. Excuse my French. Apologies.
I mean, we've been a podcast on Town for the last 4 years. There has been plenty of fucking swearing on this thing.
Right, that's all right then. That's good. And that was Wayne all over. That was his word. That was his technical term.
Because that's what I remember from like 2001 as well, when we'd beaten Fulham to stay up.
Yeah.
And we had that few moments in the back where it was on the highlights video, I think. I don't know if you guys remember as well.
Yeah, I remember.
Get fucking in there, and then sort of beats up the door.
Yeah. That's Wayne all over. But that was his technical term on that night. So
he was a classy player, Kev, wasn't he? He added another dimension to that team.
Wayne were unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Never have seen anybody just be able to pick a pass out in all my life. And like you were saying before, in terms of knowing where players were, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And he'd know where I was because I'd only stood out on right wing anyway. But to actually find me all the time was brilliant. It was brilliant for me. But it was just one of them jigsaws that just came and fitted in just exactly at the right time. They were absolutely brilliant. But what a player he was, yeah. Phenomenal player.
I guess in the build-up to the first Wembley appearance, were mine, because I remember there was a lot of worry about the run of games we'd had. I'm just trying to look at it now. So we beat Plymouth, and then after that, one
winning
night. We had a bit of a nightmare, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess thoughts were on Wembley. I mean, you can't blame you, but was that all the focus was on? I assume Alan was ripping out whatever hair he had left at the time, or
no, he was going absolutely. Not every single game he went absolutely ballistic with us, because he wanted us to go in and carry on the run, but for some reason we just couldn't get it. We're having a mare really those last few games. Couldn't get things going. So no, we were down the train line on a Sunday morning many times leading up to the playoff games. That's where we'd go running on a Sunday morning, and that were leading right up to the games because we were getting beat every week nearly.
What's this run? Where does it start from?
I can't remember. Well, he used to take us out in a minibus down some train line and then just leave us there and say, you've got to run all the way back. Take us flipping hours.
Would that be the old Peaks Parkway? Or what is Peaks Parkway now?
I can't remember. It was massive. He used to take us out in a minibus. He wouldn't speak to us, drop us off and say, we'll see you back at end. And he used to drive about another 5 miles away and then meet us at end. Aidan Davison once walked it all the way. We had to wait for it. Took him about 2 hours. And he wanted best of moves when he came back, so that was a bit of a clash.
How was Tony Gallimore with all that on a Sunday morning?
Do you know what? He went a bad runner. It made no difference. Didn't affect him. He could just do it for some reason. I've no idea how he could just do it. It didn't matter what day of week it is. He'd come in and train. Absolutely. I've never seen anybody train like it in my life.
I think John McDermott said that as well, didn't he, Alex? I think.
Yeah. I assume there was just a decent pub at the end of the run.
Well, yeah, we were there pretty quick, put it that way. But Gally he was another good player, a really, really, really top player with an unbelievable left foot. And if you know he'd been out a couple of times, but if he had been out, you just had to stay away from him in training. So I knew straight away if he had, and I'd just go to the side of the pitch and stay away because he'd missed time one or two things. I thought it's not worth getting in his way, and they were a big lad. So I used to just disappear to the other side for that morning. If I thought he'd been on a proper good one, I'd just disappear. But he could train. There were never any hassle with him in terms of his training and things like that. He always turned up. And
you spent a lot of time left wing in training then, is what you're saying, Kev, basically?
Quite a few times. Yeah, quite a few times.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
No, I was only going to say something stupid. Go ahead.
You haven't heard mine yet. Something I noticed, I was watching some of the games back from that season with daughter not long ago and came across Paul Pescasolido's tackle in the playoff final.
Yeah.
And the thing that always strikes me with that is that nowadays I'd expect to see everybody crowding around the referee and people just kind of saunter over. What was going on there? Because I just half expect to see everybody jumping up and around.
Do you know what? I think because Pete had already played it, I think everybody were following play. I think there were only obviously the fans could see it, and obviously the referee obviously close by. But I think we were following play, and it's one of them where sometimes you've gone and you turn around, you miss, and then obviously Pete's lying on the floor. So I don't think anybody overly saw. I think Grovesy were in pretty quick. But apart from that, I don't think there was actually. But obviously the referee was probably about 5 or 10 yards away. Obviously, we're looking straight at it. So
yeah, it always struck me. Even my daughter commented on it that literally, I think Tony Gallimore and Paul Groves, as you say, come over pretty quick, but nothing really happens.
No.
And then all of a sudden, Rufus Brevitt appears from about 80 yards away and wants a piece of nobody.
He would do, yeah. He would have done, yeah. Yeah. I think it was that we play just gone. It took him out. We'd all turned and gone wherever Pete played it, and that were the next time we looked, we were flat out on the floor.
I mean, if we need to talk about fouls, let's Livo's assist for yours. Should that goal have stood?
Well, it won't stand now, would it?
No.
Wouldn't stand now at all. No, because you can't basically take somebody out where the ball's nowhere near, I suppose, can you? Well, I don't take I absolutely flattened him, didn't I? And the thing is, I knew exactly what we were going to do. I knew we weren't going to touch. I knew it. I knew exactly when Wayne got on the ball and he played it. So as he left his foot, I thought Livo was going to smash him here, and he's not going to hold it up. There's no interest in playing the ball at all. And it was just 50-50 whether the referee saw it as that or it's body check, but whenever a body check were it in a million years.
It was a similar goal in the playoff final, wasn't it?
Very similar, yeah.
Burnett played it forward. I think Jack Lester this time
Yeah,
and he just swiped the defender, and it came through to you, didn't it? And
I knew what Jack's the same. You could tell by Jack's body shape. I could tell by Jack's body shape what he was going to do in terms of he weren't going to hold it up. He was just going to roll the kid. Well, he was going to foul him probably as well. Probably the same. Probably not as much as Libo's, but certainly held him off and rolled him. I could tell what he was going to do in that game as well. But that was Jack. Clever play was Jack in terms of playing the defender.
You mean he won a lot of penalties, is basically what you're saying there?
Well, he could get tripped on halfway line and land in box, couldn't he? Good Jack. He was good at it.
Even now as a coach, I wouldn't be surprised if he could.
He's good. Yeah, he was good.
Right. The only other one that I've got in terms of fisticuffs was Dan Hurst sent a message saying, what happened with the Blackpool fullback? I have no idea about this. And he's kind of added, they ended up scrapping near the touchline. I can remember this.
I remember, and I think it was a guy. I think it was a lad player called John Hills, left back. I think he got sold to Everton early in his career. I do remember it, and I don't know what it was about, but I just remember having a bit of argy-bargy, and then we sort of clashed just away from the dugout, and we both slid onto the cinder, sort of the track. But it wasn't him that actually caused all the hassle. The big centre half, I can't remember it was at the time, came all the way over, he just basically stood straight on the inside of my thigh, which obviously sent me nuts, and that sent me going, obviously, bananas for the next 10, 15 minutes. So, wasn't actually the left back, it was the left back who had originally caused the hassle that we were having a little bit of a ding-dong with. But it was actually the centre half that sort of said, obviously, red mist, because he just came from nowhere and literally he knew exactly where he just stamped straight on the leg there. But I think we went down and scored not long after it. I think Darryl Clare, probably, I think Darryl who scored in that game.
Yeah, it was a night game.
Yeah.
And it made Sky Sports' fight. It was Sky Sports' fight of the week. I remember that.
Right.
Yeah, which is a sign of the time. Is one thing you would not get these days, but yeah.
No. And there's not one thing that you get me involved in. So that's
so it was quite rare for you, Kev, wasn't it, to get involved?
It was just that. I knew I could see what he'd done, and it wasn't the left back. Obviously, the left back we'd had a bit of tussle with, and we were just having one of them games. But it was the centre half that caused me to sort of lose it, and obviously I think everybody's piled in on. But it was off the pitch where it happened, right next to the fans. So I remember it. Do remember it.
Just moving on a bit, Kevin. Sorry if it puts a bit of a down on it, but obviously we've mentioned about you having a great goal scoring season in the double year, and then the next year you went on and got a duck. Unfortunately, how did that affect you? Because I can imagine that's a massive kind of knock when you're on a bit of a high from there as well.
It was an absolute nightmare because I remember I didn't play for, I think it was quite a chunk of the first part of the season. I did me back in pre-season training, so I missed quite a few games. Took me a while to get back into things, and it was just one of those things. To be honest, I couldn't tell you. It weren't through lack of trying, it weren't through lack of effort in terms of having shot. Just one of those things that just wouldn't go in. Wouldn't go in. To score that many of the previous season and not to get one the next season, it was pretty horrific season actually. That way, it was a tough one to get over, but one of those things.
You're not begging to get a penalty at that point at any point in the season.
I know. I don't think it ever happened, or whether because I'd been injured or something like that, I'd missed it. Maybe Groves were on them or something. I can't really remember. I'd have probably missed it anyway, so I was probably better off not taking it, to be honest.
No comment. Because you came off a season where you'd played 67 games that year from 97, 98. That's got to have some effect. Obviously, you came back in from my memory, you came back in late September the next year, and then you kind of had another month off shortly afterwards, and then you came back sort of Christmas time.
Yeah.
So that's got to take its toll in some way. Playing 60. I know we talk about it quite a lot. How many games we played that season, but obviously not half as many subs as you guys. As they have now, there was 3 guys on the bench, and that was it.
Yeah. I don't know, but it might have been. I just think it was just one of those things. It was an injury I'd had previous with it at West Brom, exact same thing. So as soon as it went, I knew what I'd done and how long it would be. But trying to come back for it, came back probably a little bit too early. Obviously, did it again, and then Alan sent me away for a month. I think I ended up going away for a couple of weeks on holiday and things like that, just to get away from it because it was doing me head in terms of not being able to get to anywhere near the level I was the season before, and I found it quite frustrating. Well, I can remember it being an absolute nightmare, not being able to produce it, and I knew that I just weren't at that level of fitness there was the season before. And also as well, once I did get back to fitness, it just didn't happen in terms of my form as well. So it was just one of those things that just escalated really that season.
It also meant you missed, Kev, the 5-1 demolition of your old team.
Yeah, I remember it well.
At the start of that season. I think it was on the bank holiday, August.
Yeah, I
of
remember
that season. And I remember that home. In fact, Richard Snaker scored an absolute blinding free kick, I think.
Yeah, he did.
That day. But Town looked absolutely unstoppable that day.
Yeah, well, I think Alan had just got them wound up to, well, I know he had because they were in the dressing room before. He got them wound up to the hilt, ready for it. They were up and ready for it. Grimsby is not an easy place for an away team to come and play anyway. West Brom had some big players at that point, and probably on the day just didn't fancy it. I don't think they fancied it, and Grimsby were in bulldozer mode. It got them in that sort of mood, and there were no stopping them. I remember watching it. I remember watching all goals and just thinking we were absolutely unstoppable that day. Played really well.
I think Smudges, Dave Smith, he scored. And
he had a blind.
Groves,
they were a brilliant game. A brilliant, fantastic game,
You play in so many classic games. The most entertaining game I will ever say that for a Town, you also scored in that one. And I feel really cruel. Just like, do you remember this game from 25 years ago? But we beat Forest 4-3 at home.
Was that when we were players sent off?
They had Dave Besson sent off and somebody else. The keeper, the ref got knocked out by Grovesy. You got Lee Ashcroft got a pen. You scored as well in the last couple of minutes, and Mark Lever scored an own goal. It was an absolute barnstormer of a game. I don't know if you remember it, but I
remember it. That. Yeah, I do. Because I think they were down to, and I think they scored when they were down to 9 men as well.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. I do remember it well. It was an interesting, entertaining game, to say the least.
And what was and the other one that season was Charlton, who just ripped us apart. I mean, Clive Mendonca had come back, and that was just terrifying, that game. You scored in that one and all. I remember it being rammed then.
It was absolutely packed. But as you say, decent, obviously a good side, good players. Couldn't live with them at all.
What was the questions I got here? What was the Jacko had asked, he said he's got a Wembley 98 shirt that needs signing and ready to be framed, so I assume he'll be seeing you at the Broadley game.
That's fine. Yeah.
Bring a Sharpie.
I know him off Twitter very well, so I will gladly oblige that. Not a problem at all, which he knows anyway. Absolutely.
Joe Turner asked, did you panic at any point that Woodman wasn't going to go to ground in the 98 final?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It took a while, didn't it, to be honest. I didn't think he was. I thought I was going to have to do something a bit different, but eventually I thought he's a goner here. It was either me or him go first, and luckily, to be honest, I could just see him stumbling, and I thought, I've just got probably half a yard, and that was at the point then, obviously, he dropped and I could put it away.
That was an incredible moment. Was that one of the highlights? Well, of course it was. It would be a stupid question to ask, but what was? I mean, in that moment, I mean that game had so many different emotions for you.
Yeah, massive.
Can you look back on it fondly? I guess with the penalty miss, it doesn't really matter in the end. Does it just put a stain on it a little bit, or?
Yeah, if you're honest, of course you do. You want to score. If you look back, I mean, at the end of the day, we won, we got up, and that was the main thing. But obviously, you look back, and there were some interesting points that could have swung that game both ways in that, and I probably were involved in majority of them. But I do remember. I remember Tommy, because I remember the Northampton fans being behind that goal where I scored, and obviously Tommy Widrington took a serious injury in training, but he was doing the Sky commentary. And I can remember him saying, I said, have a look where I am. And it was in the box just above the Northampton fans. So I said, look, he said, if I score, I said, I'll come and give you a wave. So obviously, bang, thought Tommy. So I went straight up. But I think the Northampton fans, I thought we were giving it to them. So I thought I'm getting dogs abused. Probably waving to Tommy up in the Sky box.
Now we know why they took so much joy in denying us promotion like 7 years later. Maybe,
yeah. But they did. I remember getting quite a bit on that, thinking, but no, it was not to do with that. I didn't even know they were there, to be honest. I was just going to go up to wait to Tommy.
I mean, the Town should have been away. I think Grovesy hit the bar as well in that game.
He did.
And Northampton were, they were tough opponents. I remember them having John Gale, big striker up front, and Carl Higgs. Carl Higgs, was he at West Brom as well?
He was. Carl was at West Brom with me. Yeah, he was decent centre forward. Yeah, he was.
And I remember their manager Ian Atkins after the game was a bit sour grapes. I think he said the best team lost today, that kind of thing. And,
he didn't take it well. I remember on the day, I remember watching his interviews, thinking the same thing. I thought he's not took that well. Not that we were overly bothered, but
Town finished third at the end of the season. At the end of the season in the league, so it was the fairest result.
Yeah. But I think it was one of them, wasn't it? I think it's one of them where you get beat there. You think but I think overall, like you say, that game should have been wrapped up and gone. In all this, we could have had 2 or 3 quite easily. I know they could have had a couple, but I think the game should have been dead and buried. And I think for him to say, I remember him saying, I don't think you were the best side on the day by any stretch of the imagination.
What are your memories, Kev, of that day, of the celebrations afterwards? What do you do it on the bus on the way back, or how does it go?
Yeah, we did on the bus. We stopped off as well. We had that stop off and then on the bus. And then, to be honest, as you probably expect, I don't think many people can remember getting off the bus the other side. Obviously, with the journey that we had. But also as well, it's just a lot of relief in terms of, you've gone, at the end of the day, you've played so many games and it comes down to one game. And I think it's relief more than anything. Obviously, you're having a brilliant time on the bus with everybody. Fantastic time. But it's the realisation that all them games have been worthwhile. You haven't gone down there because there can be I'm sure there's no worse feeling than losing at Wembley. And you've done it and you've made everybody happy. Everybody in Grimsby's gone down. And you're back with the big boys in the Championship. So it was a brilliant feeling, brilliant journey back, and obviously a few drinks were drunk.
And it's justification for you boys who dropped to division as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was. But we also, I think we knew as well that we're in no certain terms that he had quite a little bit of a decent amount of money to put a team. I mean, you still got to be fair to Alan, you still got to put a team together that will play and what will win. But it were definitely worth. It were worth, obviously, as you say, dropping down to go back up.
Oh, sorry, Ian. I thought you were going to say something. Sorry, man. I'm just having a quick look through it, and then obviously you came back against Barnsley. How was that coming back to Blundell Park? I mean, a bit of change by then, didn't it?
When I came back, I mean, Barnsley was a big. I mean, I'd been at Grimsby 4 years. I was on a Bosman. Out of everything in what I did in football in terms of decisions and things, that was my biggest mistake, was going there. I should never have gone. I knew that within 2 days of signing as well. I knew in my head that I'd done the wrong thing. But one of those things where you've got to buckle down, you've made the decision, and you've just got to get on with things.
Are you allowed to tell us, Kev, why you knew it was the wrong decision?
There were no big sort of anything. I just had a feeling when I went there that things weren't. Obviously, they'd just come down as well. They'd got I think they'd got relegated the year before, and there was just a funny feeling about the place, to be honest. And there was a lot of players there who were looking to get out. So the dressing room wasn't brilliant. There were some fantastic players there, Chris Morgan and people like that who made you feel welcome. Mitch Ward, they had some really, really good players, but the feel around the whole place wasn't. I could just tell it wasn't right, and I made the mistake of going there for logistical reasons rather than going somewhere else. I should have gone somewhere else when I had the opportunity, but. What had happened, because you're on a Bosman, you're allowed to talk to anybody. I think it was from obviously after Christmas. So obviously even though I was playing for it, I knew all about what was going on in terms of Barnsley wanting me to go there. Nigel Spatman had contacted me, and I'd already signed the pre-Bosman in March to go there, so I already knew I was going there. But then I had opportunity to go somewhere else. I spoke to another manager. And because I'd given them my word to go to Barnsley, I'd stuck with it. I didn't feel it was the right thing to go back on my word and go and sign for somebody else. But looking back in hindsight, I should have gone and signed somewhere else.
So when you signed the pre-contract thing in March, do you have to keep that to yourself?
Yeah, nobody knows. Yeah, nobody can know.
Oh,
Just
God.
yeah, it's a nightmare. But to be honest, I mean, the only person I told was, as you probably wouldn't be surprised, was Paul, was Grovesy. Grovesy knew. And if you speak to Grovesy to this day, he'll tell you that I still gave everything. They got everything out of me that year, completely everything in terms of what I could give on the pitch. I didn't give it a second's thought of anything at all, or getting injured or not giving me all. I gave me all. It was time to move on. So I knew it was all going on. It was difficult at times not to be able to say a lot, but we're expecting his first child, things like that. I wanted to get a little bit back home, closer to Yorkshire. I had an opportunity to do it, and that's why I chose going there above going somewhere else, which is probably and was the wrong thing to do.
Because all I can think of is like Player of the Year awards and kids coming up to you, sign autograph. Are you going to stay next season?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, hopefully so.
Nice.
You know full well that you're not.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Oh.
It's horrible. It was. In terms of things like that and speaking, I knew what we're doing, where we're going, but it was difficult. But all I can say is at the time, I remember, as I say, if you speak to Groves, it didn't affect anything in terms of on the pitch, which was, at the end of the day, the main thing. And as I say, the rest of it history, but I wish it wouldn't have been. I wish it would have had a chance to go somewhere else. I should have gone, or I should have possibly stayed a little bit longer at Brinsbit, but that was just the way it was.
Who was the other what if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I spoke to Ian Holloway at QPR.
Oh,
Lucky escape.
Lucky escape, my friend.
Yeah, I know. At the time, QPR were doing well. They had some good players. They were spending big. But it was just, I didn't fancy going to. Well,
that's a hell of a trek, isn't it?
I said to him, but I actually did say to him, and my words were, I apologise. I said, I would like to have come and speak to you, but I've already given my word to Barnsley. And Ian just said, I don't care, ignore it.
What's your darts, Kev?
Hey?
What's your darts like?
That's not so good.
You wouldn't have fitted in then. It's looking definitely a good move for you.
Yeah. When we're speaking about that as well, because obviously there was a bit of an exodus, like in 2000, I'm trying to look, 2003, 2004 at Barnsley, which you missed out on, was a bit of a Grimsby fest. So did Gally and Peter Handeside come to you and ask you about it at any point as well? Obviously we'd been relegated and we were able to get out of it. But I'm looking at the clubs. Rob Atkinson was there. I mean, he wasn't really but would come to us later. Mickey Balding. Yeah. And Isaiah Rankin, and there's a couple of others. Paul Warhurst, just to give everyone else a couple more night mills. Yeah. I mean, did some of the guys that give you a call to ask you about the setup there and what it was like? Or quite surprised?
No. If they did, they would have never have gone. They certainly didn't. It was just I couldn't have picked a worse time. Don't get me wrong, my form wasn't brilliant. We'd gone, Miser Spatman had gone, we'd gone into administration. The mayor of Barnsley had taken over the club. He was flanked by two doormen on his first meeting with the players, and if anybody had a problem, we had to go and see him outside. We weren't going to get paid for 4 months. If anybody had a problem, we had to go and see him outside. And this is the mayor with his other commitment or his other interest was sort of door security. So they turned up and gave us his first meeting, but it was just a disaster from start to finish, absolute start to finish. And then obviously I ended up sort of leaving sort of 2.5 years after that with when Gudjon Thordarson, the Icelandic manager from Stoke, he came in, and Peter Risdale was the chairman then.
Was it a bit of a bring you dinner situation?
It was just... Go on.
No, just say, were you saying he was flanked by two doormen? Just reminds me of the video. I can't remember who the manager was, but did they bring you dinner?
Gone soon.
Well, I think I would imagine it would have been if it had gone out in car park. Yeah, it was basically you couldn't to tell people now. You would probably think you would know where the law was. He turned up in all his regalia, all the thing, but then these two doormen escorted him in, and then that was his words: "If anyone's got a problem, we'll see you outside."
Alan was the same, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, but he'd do it himself. He didn't.
Yeah, he didn't need to.
No.
Ian, what were we going to ask? Sorry.
Yeah. So last one from me, Kev. Away from the football, while you were at the club, what was your best moment being at the club?
Not being on the pitch, you mean?
Well, yeah. We obviously, we would go back to the Wembley games and other bits and pieces and the Burnley goal and things like that. But, if you was to have kind of one moment you'd want to go back and relive that was kind of away off the pitch, away from the fans, what would that be?
Can I tell you the one I'd have on the pitch first?
Go for it.
Semi-final playoff.
Right.
The pile-on after it scored.
That looked like it'd do some damage, really.
And the absolute emotion around the stadium was unforgettable in terms of that, and just everybody flying in. Mark Lever setting off from halfway line on his hands and knees. It was brilliant, and it was just something that I'll never forget. And I know obviously a lot of fans at that era will never ever forget in terms of just what an unbelievable time it was in terms of, and at the end of the game when we'd won and we're doing the lap of honour and things like that, even though we hadn't even gone to Wembley yet, that's just something that sticks out in my mind in terms of on the pitch, without a doubt. I'd love to go back. That was my best memory in terms of just the whole thing. Just if you could just box everything up on that was just an unbelievable night. Off the pitch, I had great times there in terms of, and I think looking back, that's probably where we built our sort of bond and camaraderie and things like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we did have a good off-field team in terms of getting together and things like that. We used to do it pretty often. We used to have some interesting training sessions the day after, but that was all part of looking back what I think made us such a good team at that time.
Just to go back to the Fulham game as well. So we interviewed Cockers not long ago, and he said that Kevin Keegan was very magnanimous after the game. Was that something that he was like with you as well?
He was good with the players. He waited for us down the tunnel as we came off. Yeah, shook everybody's hands. He weren't obviously being in the dressing room and spoke to him, and then, but to be fair to him, he waited in the tunnel, shook everybody's hands. He just said best of luck, and that was fair play to the fella. After they'd spent a lot of money. Big players expecting to obviously steamroller Little Grimsby in the semi-final, but we had different ideas.
Kev, out of all the players, who do you still speak to from that season as well?
I speak to a lot on social media in terms of, obviously social media is a brilliant way to keep in touch and things like that. Speak to Grosey, Lee Nogan, speak to Wayne Burnett, back in touch. Obviously with the game coming up as well, it's been good to sort of get back in touch with a lot of players as well, like Aidan Davison, who's been in America for a long time. Mark Lever I speak to quite regular. Obviously Stacey Caldicott came a little bit after, but it's just, to be honest, when we all go back in a couple of weeks' time, I know for a fact it'll just be like old times. It won't feel like it'll be like 2 minutes since we've seen each other. That's how good the bond was and how good the team spirit was that Alan had sort of got and built for us.
And is this the first time back at Blundell Park in a while?
It is, yeah. It is for me. Obviously, we had the chairman's game. I've been to sort of a couple of games as well, but not a great deal. Obviously, I don't get a chance really. Obviously, we're watching, taking my lads to go watch Leeds and my soccer school as well on Saturday. So I don't get often get very much chance to come back, but it's nice when I do come back. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day. Look forward.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
I'm slightly worried that we might need to make a map of what bars and grounds are sort of open around the town. I've got a slightly sadder idea of you, Mark Lever, and the like just waiting outside the pier and realising it's now a fish and chip restaurant.
I think we'll have a long wait, won't we?
But oh man, it's going to be an absolute pleasure to see all of you. There's going to be a lot of grown men crying, not just off the pitch either. I think.
No, I think if you look at obviously the WhatsApp group and things like that that's been set up, and obviously the things that's going around, I think you can probably see that all the players are looking forward to coming back. It's not a case of everybody's just jumped on board this and they're looking forward to it, and that's part of obviously the area they want to come back. Who haven't been back for a while, the club. People that fans, players, ex-players, people who will be ground staff, things like that. It's just going to be a magical day.
The changing rooms haven't changed.
No, I don't expect it will be. No.
That WhatsApp group. Can you imagine? That's a way of raising some money for charity. Just tell the fans the highest bidder gets put in it for a week.
Good idea.
Yeah. Kev, it has been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see you. Thank you so much. Good luck with the soccer school. Good luck with Leeds next season. How does that feel being one of the more loved teams nowadays? Has that changed your...
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed a little bit, hasn't it? From being the most hated side. I think a lot of people actually, I wouldn't say love them, but I think they'd like to watch maybe the style of play. That's about it. But it's going to be nice to be able to go back in and obviously get back in the ground and watch, hopefully, what we've been watching on TV and just see it live. It's going to be brilliant to get back out there and just see some of these players that we haven't obviously seen play for Leeds yet, obviously live on the TV. So looking forward to it.
Do you feel a little bit robbed of last season? Obviously, first one back in the Prem.
I think I would have been if we'd have gone down.
Yeah.
I think I would have been absolutely. My two lads would have been devastated. That's for sure. Because obviously they waited a long time, as a lot of Leeds fans have. But just to obviously see them go back up, it would have been typical Leeds for us to go up and then come straight back down. But obviously with the manager in charge that we've got, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I can well imagine.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be there soon. It'll take a few
Fingers
years.
crossed. Yeah. You never know. You never know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.